Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning. Let us now complete our discussion of Mahesh Elkanchwar's plays with the last play, which belongs to the latter phase of his career as a playwright, which is called Sonata. And Sonata was also made into a film, which was released about two or 3 years back.
We're all in boxes. You, me, that woman in the window. Cheers, Miss Typo! Why don't you make a list? Cigarette bad. Wine bad. Hugging and kissing very bad.
What? What?
Akash kande hotash shomu nai jekho. I sway through life with abandon. Petni, sharp chutney.
Garlic chicken here, all right.
Macroman and Seaweed.
Only in their briefs. I wonder who gets to bet them.
Not so loud. Someone might hear you.
Here.
Oh, not on me. I like the smell of my man. Will you please remove those glasses? Here.
Oh.
Does he beat you regularly? He's really like a child.
No.
It's a man-woman thing. You won't understand, Aru.
Plenty of wine.
No, she must be taking me for a walking encyclopedia on pornography. Bet. Now drink. Like it?
Kadak. But good. What awful creatures we are.
No commitment, no aim.
No ideology.
We're not even feminists.
People have accepted me for who I am, and if I can't talk about it, then who?
Who the hell was looking at his profile, yaar? With those thighs. Thunder thighs.
You hijacked my life for what you call summer war.
Dhulan, I'm afraid of you.
What?
Love doesn't last all one's life. I believed that then and I believe it now. His eyes still burn with the same fire, now mixed with pain.
Because I could not stop for death.
He kindly stopped for me.
The carriage held just ourselves and immortality.
And the play itself features 3 women, Subhadra, Aruna and Dolan. And the play is set in a rather posh flat on the top floor of a tall skyscraper in Bombay. And the setting itself connotes a physical site that conveys a sense of cocooned security that is threatened again and again from within through the relationships between the women. All the 3 women are in their 40s. They have known each other since college, and 2 of them, Aruna and Dolan, live together in the same flat. They've been living in the same flat for 17 years, and the play is a night from their lives. The entire play takes place over the course of a single night, and it kind of conveys, it also suggests Elkanchwar's engagement with the event in the everyday. Right? How is the mundane lives of these women temporarily ruptured by the animosities between them, the growing estrangement between the women, and how in some sense this animosity, these attacks that they make, these allegations that they make against each other is partially mitigated and restores their friendship to a certain extent by the end of the play. So the play really depicts the subtle power dynamics between the three women, and both the intimacy and the violence that are mutually reinforcing conditions of their friendship. And so the play has these very subtle ways of showing or depicting hidden animosities and secrets that lie beneath their friendships, that in some sense constantly rupture, undermine, reconfigure their emotional intensities and the relationships, but in some sense also reinforces or restores the intimacy between them. So Aruna and Dolan form the central double in the play, and Subhadra, who is the third woman, it's basically Subhadra's entry and exit into their flat, which is the transformative moment in the play. So Subhadra is a woman who is she's a journalist, and she has several affairs, but she's also in a relationship with a wastrel, a drunk, who abuses her and assaults her. So she has a violent relationship with this man that the other two women, Aruna and Dolan, do not approve of. So they judge her, and they hold on to their own apparent privilege, their own apparent sense of superiority by judging her and the lonely typist neighbor who does not appear in the play, but she is typing away, and both the women, Aruna and Dolan, use Subhadra and affairs as well as the lonely typist neighbor as the measures of their reference in order to give themselves a sense of privilege and superiority. So the apparent state of stability in the lives of Aruna and Dolan is temporarily interrupted by the entry of Subhadra and the kind of life and her lifestyle which they judge her for. The fact that she has several affairs, that she has a relationship with a violent man, and she also rationalizes the violence of the man, and she also tells them that she even hits him back whenever he hits her. Rationalizing the violence that seems to come with intimacy of any kind. And this correlation of intimacy with violence is also reflective of the relationships between the women. So once Subhadra exits, the two women, Aruna and Dolan, no longer have Subhadra as a frame of reference, as a foil that would give them their false sense of superiority and privilege, and they end up attacking each other bitterly towards the end of the play, where we discover later on that Dolan had a brief sexual encounter with Aruna's estranged, long divorced husband. And so that in some sense brings out a sense of deep sense of betrayal and repressed sexuality which comes with it. And so they argue with each other, they attack each other, but Aruna also is willing to actually let go of the past, and their friendship is restored, or albeit altered to a large extent. And you also have these mentions of Dolan's. Dolan is a banker, and she's a very restless woman. She's obsessed with her own health and the food that she eats. She's Bengali, so it's her constant references to and performances of Robindra Sangeet and her bottles of perfume that become her private obsessions, as a way of trying to constantly conceal her own insecurity, her own vulnerability. Similarly, you have Aruna, who is a Sanskrit professor, whose intellectual, creative pretensions again are obsessions that manifest themselves in her own private space. And you have Subhadra, whose adoration of her husband, of her boyfriend, her partner, as well as her constant amorous raptures of the male teacher who taught them in college, again becomes a way of veiling her own, the violence that characterizes her life, her own insecurities, and the fact that she knows that the other two women, Aruna and Dolan, judge her for her life. And so Subhadra, when she comes back, when she enters the flat and she's come to see them, Aruna sarcastically tells her that you have come to visit your transit lounge. So it's almost like as though the other two women, her friends, are a source of temporary relief, to which she returns now and then when she needs to feel better about herself. But then also realizes that the two friends of hers are not always the source of comfort that she assumes they are, but that they are also, they also judge her for her lifestyle. So let us first look at how the opening of the play, where it is only just one act. The play only comprises one act, and it's the stage directions are rather elaborate. It describes the rather wealthy flat on the fine suburbs of Mumbai. The stage directions are as following. A fine terrace flat in one of the finer suburbs of Mumbai. The drawing room is filled with fragile, delicate objects: glass tabletops, porcelain object art, crystal vases. It's obvious that only women live here. So the objects that are visible, that are present on stage, are delicate objects that can break. So the objects themselves suggest the fragility of the relationships between the women, that are imminently breakable, that they can actually be ruptured and exposed for what they are at any point in time. 3 steps down the drawing room is the terrace. The apron should be used for the terrace. On the left is a door leading to Aruna's room. The 2 doors in the back, one leads the kitchen and the other serves as an entrance to the flat. Between the doors is a wooden cabinet with intricate carving against the wall. The area on stage left has a coffee table and a few low chairs. Upstage on the left is Aruna's working desk and chair and a rocking chair. On the right, another road leading to Dolan's room. Upstage on the right, a sofa, a center table and a TV facing the cyclorama. Near the door leading to Dolan's room is a small carved table on which is an array of perfume bottles of all shapes and colors. Beyond this, we see the skyline of skyscrapers. It is evening when the play opens. The windows of the skyscrapers will gradually lit up and then fade as the play progresses. Aruna and Dolan on the stage. Aruna, 40-ish, once beautiful but now fading, in a Bengal handloom sari. Glasses, a tight bun on her nape, very professional, is correcting papers on her desk. Dolan, same age as Aruna, is an old, much worn but obviously expensive dressing gown, plump, stylish, boy cut, shuffling around aimlessly. She's one of those people who wear expensive clothes carelessly. She's perhaps trying to put the room in order, but in her effort to do so, she brings more disorder into it. Aruna is making great effort to ignore her friend's noisy activity, but finally cannot take it anymore. So the play opens with a very stark contrast between the two characters, Aruna and Dolan. Dolan is someone who dresses up, who wears her expensive clothes rather carelessly. Right? She seems to be someone who is rather self-indulgent and seems to be almost indifferent to her own privilege, but then also makes it a point to exhibit it, to show it in her clothing and in the way she carries herself. She's a very restless woman. She's always flitting around the flat, trying to draw Aruna's attention. Right? And there's also an unspoken secret desire that Dolan has for Aruna, which becomes more evident later in the play. She is a woman who is constantly trying to judge Aruna for being this absolutely disciplined, boring, perhaps even pedantic Sanskrit scholar and professor. Aruna, on the other hand, seems to be very well kept. She seems to be rather self-sufficient. She's very disciplined. We see her grading papers and laughing at her students in contempt for their awful answers, their awful writing. And there's also a clear Bengali cultural presence in the drawing room, because Dolan is Bengali, Aruna is Maharashtrian, but then she's also dressed up in a Bengali handloom sari, and looks very. She seems to have an air of expensive simplicity, and she also seems rather emotionally distant. She's not a woman who likes to be touched. Dolan seems to be the person who is physically expressive, demonstrative with her affections, is very talkative and rather rebellious, and constantly makes fun of Aruna for being this absolutely self-contained, disciplined and boring woman scholar. So Dolan also becomes a rather caricature of Bengaliness in the way she is constantly talking about food and her Bengali penchant for good food. She's obsessed with eating well. She's also obsessed with the weight she's been putting on, and how she constantly asks Aruna for her validation of the clothes she wears. She tries wearing new sets of clothes to see if they still fit, and she's constantly asking Aruna whether she thinks that she is pretty and she's elegant and she's desirable. She's also obsessed with her perfumes. She is obsessed with the smell of perfume, just like she's obsessed with the smell of food. And but Aruna doesn't seem to have much time for her. She's completely absorbed and lost in her own grading of her students' papers and her own knowledge of Sanskrit. And then she constantly utters these Sanskrit lines from the answer papers, now and then interjecting Dolan's lines and dialogues. And you also see how both the women use the typist, lonely typist neighbor, and Subhadha's affairs later on as a reference point for their own judgments and privileged lifestyle. So you see it on page 251, where Dolan makes fun of Aruna for her Maharashtrian middle class nature, her typical Maharashtrian middle class nature, her jealousy, her resentment towards Bengalis, of how Bengalis seem to be entitled to their own artistic and cultural lifestyles and taste, and that very often you also see Aruna asking Dolan whether Bengalis are the only ones who are entitled to art and culture, or whether there are other communities like Maharashtrians who seem to have their own contribution to make, their own sense of entitlement towards aesthetics. Again on 256, Dolan says, looks at the lonely typist and tells her that she must be awfully lonely, leading a life unlike theirs, which seems to be a lot more exciting. And then Aruna asks her to sing some Robindra Sangeet. Dolan says, I tried once. I waved my hand from my balcony and smiled. She slammed down her shutters, referring to the lonely typist. Aruna asks her to sing, but then Dolan doesn't seem to be very willing. And then Dolan says, why do people dislike me? Speak something, woman. And Aruna says, watch out now, Dolan. Dolan is crushing a cigarette stub. She smokes. Now you will take out the wine, smoke and get sentimental. Don't. So they're obviously very aware of, familiar with each other's lifestyles. They're the ways of living, and so they know each other very well. And this is one of those days when they, discover that they again discover their familiarity with each other, but also the fact that there is a brewing sense of estrangement and violence that will occur in the play. Dolan says, you afraid? Aruna, sing. Dolan, you straight-laced middle-class Maharashtrian. And Aruna asks her to sing a Robindra song by Rabindranath. Then Aruna says, nobody dislikes you. Dolan, friendship with men is bad, unthinkable. You dislike me. Sorry. Aruna, be quiet. Dolan, sorry. Aruna, we've been sharing this apartment for all these years. We've made it our home. Is that nothing to you? Dolan, sorry. Aruna, go make some rice. Dolan, go into the cabinet. Have it. We stay together out of habit. Aruna, if you say so. Dolan, and these squabbles, another routine. Aruna, with slight disapproval. it is not such a bad idea to give up some bad habits. She's talking about smoking and drinking. Dolan aggressively, you mean it is always I who start fights? Aruna is deeply engrossed in her papers. No, Baba, can't live like you. Control, total self-control, perennial. The way you walk, talk, sit, controlled. I like to speak. I like to express myself. Yes, I am demonstrative, and I am not a bit ashamed of it. I don't want those severe lines in my face, a morose face, wooden movements. Right? So that's her perception of Aruna as someone who is absolutely suppressed, self-controlled, doesn't seem to have a single touch of freedom and spontaneity about her. And she thinks of herself as someone who is spontaneous and someone who is demonstrative. Dolan is also very extravagant with her money. She spends carelessly, she buys expensive perfumes, she buys expensive clothes, and she seems to be absolutely living in complete abandon. And then there's again later on 259 and 260, she's constantly asking Aruna for her appreciation of her beauty despite her age, of her figure despite the fact that she likes eating. And so she obviously wants Aruna's appreciation, acknowledgement, and that itself suggests her own unspoken and secret desire for Aruna. But Aruna seems to be rather emotionally distant and unavailable. She's not someone who wants to think about the past, think about how Dolan betrayed her by having an intimate encounter with her husband, which she discovers later. She does not like being touched. So it's almost like as if she wants to prevent herself from being hurt again. So Aruna is fairly, she gives off an appearance of being fairly detached and self-sufficient. And of course, this later on we discover is also a facade of self-sufficiency in an attempt to not be hurt by her friend. And then later on we see Aruna, just mollycoddling Dolan, telling her, this silliness of yours, I like it. Subhadra loves it, right? So Dolan tries on her new clothes and she reappears in her old dressing gown, and she pours herself some wine, and she has wine and cheese, and she asks Aruna to have it, but she's not interested. And she says, I'm going to be a compulsive eater. No anorexia here or bulimia. Eat like a pig. Grow fat. Grow so enormously fat that on that fat the entire city of Mumbai can be kept illuminated from 15th of August to 26th of January. Some use of this body. As it is outlived its purpose, if it had any to begin with. So you get a sense of Dolan also being a fairly lonely woman who has maybe kind of entertained herself. Her only pleasure in life being food, eating, and singing and drinking. But Aruna is in no mood to give her any attention, and she also seems to be a prude. She's not someone who likes the sexual jokes that Dolan and Subhadra crack in the course of the play. And then Subhadra enters, right? And Subhadra again is someone who speaks in a mixture of Hindi, Bombay Hindi and English, and she again seems to be someone who is absolutely, lives, in utter comfort. She seems to be rather careless herself in her own appearance. She wears expensive clothes. She's heavily made up. But then she also seems to be someone who is extremely cavalier almost, and extremely light-hearted at some level, and she seems to be very excited to be with her friends. But then they discover that she has a black eye, and under the sunglasses that she's wearing, and then they realize that she has been assaulted by the man she lives with. And again, this is the moment where Dolan and Aruna judge her for her promiscuous lifestyle, that she has many relationships, affairs with men, and Aruna disapproves of the fact that she is still living with a man who assaults her, and they are completely against her attempts to rationalize her violent relationship with this man. And Subhadra says that Aruna says, you don't fit into my concept of correct living, but have I given up on you ever, Subhadra? Dolan, can we ever? Subhadra tenderly, no, you two never gave up on me. Thank you, Aru. Thank you, Dolan. Don't I need a corner to rest my head after that bashing? Dolan, transit lounge? Aruna, shut up. Dolan, so that's what we are, a transit lounge. Aruna, forget morality. You've kicked the society in the back. Say it, say ass. And so this is that point where there's this kind of almost this child schoolish banter being exchanged between the women, cracking sexual jokes and using obscenities and foul words that Aruna does not approve of. Right? And then they also smoke, which again Aruna does not approve of. She says, and suppose I did all that, smoked, drank, I can do that, but I'm 40 now and who's to stop me? Turn around. She holds Subhadra's face in her hands and turned it towards herself, scrutinizes it. Don't move. Applies cream below her eyes. Is that all or is there more? Subhadra smiles and rubs her face against Aruna's stomach. Aruna puts her hand on her head affectionately. Idiot. Dolan is watching all this, almost moved to tears. So there's a lot of intimacy between the three women, despite the fact that they do have scores to settle against each other, that they still resent each other in certain ways, that they do not approve of each other's lifestyles, each other's way of being, and at the same time they also seem to harbor secret desires for each other. And they also have secrets from each other. In fact, the most important one being the betrayal that Dolan feels that she has done by having an intimate sexual encounter with Aruna's ex-husband. Then later on, when Dolan praises Aruna for her professional credentials, for having won a scholarship on Sanskrit, then Aruna is rather ashamed and embarrassed. And we also discover that Aruna writes stories for a women's magazine. And in one of the stories, she has a character who resembles Dolan. Right? So Dolan is rather resentful of the rather negative characterization in the story of the character who resembles her. She asks, the story itself is really about a woman who is not very educated, and a woman who leads a rather reckless life. And Dolan is quite upset. She is convinced that the character has been inspired by her, and she has a fight with Aruna where she accuses her of betraying her by portraying her in a very poor light in the story. Right, so that becomes another occasion for a potential animosity between the friends. So if you look at page 271 of Act 1, there is a long quote which again between the women who want to believe that they lead self-sufficient lives. So Dolan says, what awful women we are, Aruna. We're all right, we're self-sufficient, we earn, we spend. Dolan, self-centered, do nothing for the society. Subhadra, without any commitment, without any ideal. Dolan, no ideology. Subhadra, we're not even feminists. Dolan, we blow money, smoke, drink. Subhadra, and my affairs. Dolan giggling, she, what kind of people are we? Subhadra, decadent but happy, we are happy. Dolan, unabashedly happy. So Subhadra, abominably happy. Dolan, obscenely. Right? So the women would like to believe that they are fairly self-sufficient women who earn, who spend, who don't have any commitment to any kind of ideology, not even feminism. We blow money, smoke, and drink. Right? So, but this is just their self-perception, and this is obviously being eroded from within across the play through their hidden animosities and secrets. Subhadra, who is an editor in a newspaper, loses her job, right? And she's upset that she's been betrayed by the paper, who accuses her of plagiarism, for which she loses her job. And then there's an encounter again between the women, who again judge her for being in a relationship with a violent man. And later on, after Subhadra leaves, there is this encounter between Dolan and Aruna, where Dolan accuses her of misrepresenting her in the story. Dolan says that the story is based on me. Aruna, no. Dolan, the heroine of your story, she uses frilly, jazzy clothes, smokes, drinks. Aruna, hundreds of women do that. Dolan, and her Marathi is laced with Punjabi. Aruna, a totally imaginary character. Dolan, Punjabi instead of Bengali. Why didn't you make her Bengali? It would have been more authentic. Aruna, will you listen to me? Dolan in a broken voice. You shouldn't have done that. Such an old friendship. Gone in a minute. Foot, just like that. Aruna, look here. That woman is not you. Maybe some similarities, only a few externalities. Dolan, don't give me that bullshit. Good night. Aruna, wait a minute. Dolan, I'll pack my things first thing in the morning. Aruna, will you please listen to me? You hold a big post in a multinational. She's a clerk, you are multilingual, she's almost an uneducated. Dolan, this is my flat, you should leave. Aruna, I will, but not unless I've thrashed this out. Yes, it's true, she's bubbly like you. Dolan, and she touches like me. Yes, I touch, but I touch easily in everybody. Kiss even. You find something like that in my touches? Like that Surinder's? Aruna gives her a long, hard stare and then turns to go to her room. Dolan shouts at Aruna, why don't you thrash it out now? Right? So Dolan is deeply hurt and resents Aruna for betraying her. She even tells that the story should have been called Betrayal instead of Maitra, because it seems to have a character who resembles her, who's been shown in a very poor light in the story as someone who wears frilly, jazzy clothes, who smokes and drinks, who leads a reckless life, devoid of any responsibility. So whether or not this is true, perhaps one could read this as Aruna's attempts to then probably take a jibe at Dolan for her reckless lifestyle, which she does not disapprove of, which she does not approve of, sorry. And then later on, Dolan asks her to leave because she tells her that the flat belongs to her. And then later on, we get to know that Dolan had an affair with Aruna's ex-husband. And Aruna, now we get to know about Aruna's conflicting self-perceptions. Aruna was herself someone who wanted to lead a very ambitious life. As Dolan says, you were dreaming of a magnificent career. You were ambitious. Indology, Germany, America, conferences and seminars, rubbing shoulders with the cream of the world. Right? So that was Aruna's life. Right? And so she realized that she could not be married to a man who was Avinash. Aruna's ex-husband is named Avinash, and Aruna realizes that she could not have lived a life with Avinash because he was, Aruna calls him as, terms him as someone who was celebrated but still a wastrel, right? So she felt that she would have undermined her life's ambition had she continued to be married to Avinash. So she terminates the marriage, but then according to Dolan, she terminates the marriage, but Aruna says, I'm not so sure of that. Right? So Aruna is not entirely willing to accept the fact that she terminated the marriage, despite the fact that she did not want to be married to a man who would have undermined and been obstruction to her own professional ambitions. Perhaps I wouldn't have been able to cope with him, Aruna tells Dolan. No, I know I'm not a success, but not a failure either. I'm living a tepid, monotonous, secure life, am I not? Life has passed us by, Dolo. So I think Aruna and Dolan realize that they have probably passed the bloom of their life and that they're now leading fairly monotonous, privileged lives. And it's the monotony that comes with privilege that in some sense they're trying to displace and interrupt with their own personal rivalries and resentments, because they're not able to take the monotony of a privileged lifestyle where they don't seem to lack anything apparently. And so there's also a moment later on where they are grateful, they are happy that in fact they quote, Dolan quotes a poem by Emily Dickinson which valorizes death, and they're she's grateful that human beings are not immortal. What would happen if we were immortal? If there was never an end to life and that we kept on living, that we would actually find ways of killing ourselves. And so death is a great source of comfort and relief from a constant attempt to strive, humans strive for more and more, and never seem to find an end to it. Right? This constant quest for self-sufficiency and completion and perfection, which never seems to end. So there's this revelation here towards the end of Act 1 where Dolan tells Aruna that she went to see Avi because you asked me to. When I came back to the hostel room, you were lying on your bed in the dark. Aruna, please. Dolan, your tears running down into the pillows. Aruna, it was a difficult decision. You did something beautiful then. You held me close. Dolan, touched your white eyes with my lips. Aruna, you drank all my pain. Dolan, it never happened again. Aruna, no. Dolan, Aruna, bolo ma. Dolan, you ever thought I was giving you signals? Aruna, never. Dolan, but you changed so much after that evening, became remote. Aruna, I'll always cherish that moment, Pugly. For the first time in my life, I hadn't recoiled from human contact. But I can't always be that. I was so ashamed you saw me crying. So Aruna is somebody who does not want to be seen as vulnerable. She doesn't want to expose her feelings. And that was the only moment they had, which was intimate, physically intimate. But ever since then, Aruna has recoiled into herself and led a fairly emotionally distant but lonely life, writing stories for a women's magazine. So, in fact, Dolan then ridicules Aruna for leading a life by proxy. Right? So she accuses Aruna of being insecure, that she could not dare to live the kinds of the wild lives that Dolan and Subhadra have lived, which is why she judges them, and she probably derives vicarious pleasure from them by writing stories that are based on her friends. Dolan says, we are friends. Aruna, have I hurt you? I know I have, sorry. Dolan, on the contrary, I have hurt you, and you don't even know it. I've been hurting you for years. Aruna, haven't we had enough of this sentimentality, Dolan? Dolan, I accused you of betraying me. Aruna, wasn't the first time you said something like that to me? Dolan, I have betrayed you. You and Avi parted ways on that day, and you said to me, go, be with him. I can manage myself, but he's being ripped apart. When I came back from him, I was full of him, and I never told you. When I went to him, he was writhing in pain. As I tried to console him, I forgot everything at that moment. Your relationship with him, our friendship. The happiness I got was so overpowering. When I saw you crying, I felt like covering you with that happiness. I never met Avi after that. But Aruna does not confront her with this confession. It's almost like as if she hasn't heard what she said, and she goes around organizing the room, which is a mess. And this is obviously Aruna's ways of guarding her own sense of betrayal and vulnerability. Dolan, will you ever forgive me? Aruna, what right did I have over him? Dolan, I betrayed your trust. Aruna, I've never thought that others should not get what I cannot. What's so new in what you did, friend? All the dhutis and sakhis from Sanskrit poetry have been doing this for ages. Dolan sobs. Aruna takes her in her arms. Enough, my precious. It is the past. Leave it behind. You needn't have told me all this. You did, so it's okay. Get up now and chin up, honey. Dolan rises, trips against the center table. The perfume bottle on it falls down. Dolan, ma, go. Aruna, Subhadra gave it. Dolan, not a drop left. God. Aruna, give it to me. One more addition to the collection. These papers, I'll have to do them tomorrow. I must try a little snooze. Dolan, I think I will read for a while. And they play Moonlight Sonata towards the end of the play. So you see that the perfume bottle that Subhadra gives her breaks, shatters. And so there's this moment where after Subhadra's exit from the flat, the two women, reveal their hidden animosities towards each other. It's in very subtle ways. Even the betrayal that Dolan feels she has done to Aruna is exposed and revealed by the end of the play. And so they also lose whatever little privilege and superiority they had over Subhadra when they bare fangs for the last time towards the end of the play. But then there is also this hint of where Aruna forgives and is willing to completely let go of the past and embraces Dolan for the friend that she is. And so there is this attempt to try and restore an exposed, wounded friendship, right? And so this is how the play ends, right? So this is our discussion of Mahesh Alkanchua's last play, Sonata. We will then continue in our next session on our discussion of a new playwright, Mahesh Dattani. Thank you.